Well, good morning and welcome. I should say, first off, welcome to Representative Pryor. Thank you very much for joining me here today on Affairs of State. So, Representative Pryor, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to be here with you. I really appreciate it.
Yes, well, thank you very much. And for those who do not know, and of course I'm quite sure because you don't know where I live, but this is my state representative, and I have voted for Representative Pryor since 2008 when she was on that historic ticket. Yes, when we elected our president, President Barack Obama. So, and I tell you what, yes, and you're welcome. So you have received my vote since 2008. So
thank you. That was a historic ticket, and I still have with me the handout with my picture and the president mailers that was sending people at the time. I still have that because it is historic. So
yes, I tell you what, I remember during that day how many African Americans, especially our elder statesmen, how they literally cried on that day because they thought that day would never appear. Yeah. And all of a sudden it did. And yes, that was a wonderful day. But
it was. And I remember the conversation. We had talks. I'm originally from Mississippi. My grandfather was still alive at that time, and my grandmother was still alive when we were talking about the election that summer. My grandfather was just concerned, that people would not support an African American. And as we had discussions and we're saying, well, if we don't vote for him, then he won't win.
That's right.
And so that kept building up the momentum in the community. And so, we were all able to get him over for 2 terms.
That's right. That's right. And I tell you what, it was just one of those elections that up until this previous election, that was, and if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, but I think more Americans came out for that election than in previous elections. And because of that, that's how we were able to get President Obama over the hump. So, but
at that time, yeah. So, yeah, it was historic.
Oh, yes. Wonderful time. And as a matter of fact, as Representative Pryor mentioned, she is from Holly Springs, Mississippi. I'm also a native of Mississippi as well. My dad was born not too far from Holly Springs. He was from Starksville, Mississippi. And I grew up in a small town named Centerville, Mississippi, in the southwestern part of Mississippi, which is south of Natchez. And so I'm way down in that tip of Mississippi. But I tell you what,
you're way down in Mississippi, and I was born and raised and lived in Mississippi, the north central part of Mississippi until I was almost 16, and then came to Indiana.
Wow. And you've been here ever since.
And I've been in Indiana ever since, yes.
I understand. When I tell you what, well, I guess we can now say to each other, welcome.
Sure.
Well, I tell you what, Representative Pryor, I'm going to give you the floor just for you to make an opening statement to everyone that's watching on Affairs of State. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you again for inviting me to be on your show today. I really appreciate it. Again, State Representative Cherish Pryor. I represent the northwest side of Indianapolis, and it covers parts of Pike Township in Washington Township, and I've been elected since 2008 on that historic ticket with President Barack Obama. Prior to that, I also served on the City County Council as well. So I have served there for 2 years before coming over to the legislature. I also interned for the House of Representatives as well. That's what brought me to Indianapolis, because I graduated from Fort Wayne Southside. I went to IU, have my undergraduate degree from IU in Bloomington in criminal justice, and my master's degree in public affairs from IUPUI. And so, now I'm here in Indianapolis, representing the people in my district.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much. And I know the one thing that you've done more than anything else, you've kept us aware of everything that's going on within the state legislature, because I do receive your information in the mail quite often. And for that, I say thank you very much for representing us. And
welcome.
Hence the reason why I continue to vote for you.
I appreciate that. My motto as a legislator is fighting for what matters to you. And so part of that is, wanting people to know that they can reach out to me and let me know what their issues are, but also keeping people informed about things that are happening within our community via my e-blast list. Then also the mailings that people get as well, making sure people know some of the services and things that they can avail themselves of as well. So that is really getting that information out to people is really important to me.
And for that, I have been involved in political I'm a political science pre-law major myself, undergrad from Jackson State, and I've been involved in politics relatively all of my life. And I even remember as 3 years old watching the Democratic Convention at the age of 3. I still recall that. And this is one of those things that's very passionate to me, is to making sure that the African American community is aware of what's going on around them. And because if we're not aware of what's going on around us, then we are retroactively responding to things instead of being proactive.
Yes, absolutely.
And these are some of the things that we need to be prepared for in making sure that some of the bills that are being proposed, some of the just things that's going on in our community, whether or not there's something available for small business, something readily available for the elderly, how the police are treating us when whether it's racial profiling, all of these topics we need to be aware of, and we need to make sure that we are able to respond to in a timely manner, because being retroactively responsive to something is not always the best thing. We need to be proactive and get ahead of it.
We do, and I will tell you, my mentor, state representative William Crawford, he would always say, "If you're not at the table, you're on the menu." Too often, the African American community is on the menu, and how we get ahead of that is by making sure that we are engaged in, sadly, for our community, I think we've gotten so complacent and gotten to the point where we feel that if it doesn't affect me, then I shouldn't be concerned about it. I always say we don't live in a silo. There's nothing that is done, but we live in a silo. And if it's something bad and it's affecting someone else, it's only a matter of time that it is going to affect you in our community. So, you may not spend all of your time on an issue that's bad, that's affecting someone else, but at least be vocal about it, say something about it, do something about it. We've got to stop being complacent in issues. Because our community is being devastated by so many issues. The list of issues that's devastating our community is large. Everything we're high in numbers for every negative category and low in all of the good categories. And, we got to change that. We have to change that.
Well, since you mentioned that, can you mention or discuss some legislations that we really should be concerned about in the African American community? I know a lot of things that are the main things that are prevalent happens to deal with how we've been treated in the police by the police, but not just that. But are there, in conjunction with that, are there bills or is there legislation that we as African Americans should truly be concerned about in our community, not just in the Northwest area, but overall?
I would say I'll point out two bills. Every 2 years, the state of Indiana has to pass a budget, budget bill. And that budget bill is, it was last year about $33 billion. This year, maybe a little bit more. So I would say that as an African American community, we need the budget is the priorities of the state of Indiana. And so what we need to do as a community and what I do as a legislator is look at that budget and make sure that things that are affecting our community or agencies or earmarks, well, not necessarily earmarks, but money that goes into that budget goes to programs that will benefit the minority community. For instance, I was happy to find out that the Minority Health Coalition will be getting a little increase in their budget. COVID, that was significant because COVID is hitting the African American community, the minority communities disproportionately. So that was a good thing. But we also have an issue with not adequately funding the food banks. With COVID, food banks are running out of food. In some places, the lines are long, and that is affecting our seniors and our kids and our young people with nutrition and health beyond the budget. With the budget, I also keep an eye out for minority teacher scholarship funding money. We have a program that's named after Representative William A. Crawford, where depending on your need, you can get up to $16,000 if your major is in teaching. And so making sure programs like that are funded is important to me because we need to make sure that we have minority teachers in the classroom. So that bill is a bill that's important. There's always some bad stuff in that bill as well. But for me, making sure we are having adequate funding for those programs so that we can help our young people is important. Okay. Another bill is the cigarette tax bill. And so that we are having discussions here at the legislature about adding an additional tax on cigarettes. The concern that the African American legislators have, and Representative Robin Shackelford is the ranking minority member on health, who is also the chair of the Black Caucus. The concern that we have is that money not going towards health issues. Cigarette smoking is a killer in our community. Again, we're disproportionately affected by smoking, and even the vaping now. That's a whole nother thing. And so we are concerned that all that money is not being earmarked towards healthcare issues that can help make sure that our health disparities are not increased in the minority community. So those are, a couple of things. And this is another bill that is also important to my district, and also around the state, and it goes beyond just the minority community. We're having a lot of people, and I'm getting a lot of phone calls from individuals who are concerned about what we're calling this 5G, and that's the build out of broadband and technology.
Yes.
So we can better get service.
Mm-hmm.
People are, the concerns that I'm getting is that the utility companies will show up in the morning and people have a pole in front of their home and they're not. And so I'm getting a lot of those phone calls from people in my district. And so, that's a concern that people have because it's affecting their property values. And the last thing I'll say is gentrification is another issue.
Yes.
Something that I've been working on for a while. And that is a major concern that people have. People's property taxes are going up, which is a good thing. We want our property values to go up, but the concern that we have is that people are being priced out of their home or being taxed out of their home because the property taxes are increasing due to the assessed values. So I've been trying to figure out a way and get the legislators to pass some legislation that will protect those long-time homeowners so that they can stay in their homes.
Wow. I tell you what, Representative Pryor, you brought up a lot of questions here, but I'm going to take but I'm going to take that last one first with the gentrification piece here. Is it possible for those homeowners that's been in their homes, let's just say for 30 years? We have been in our home, it'll be 26 years. Oh my gosh, no, 27 years, February 22nd.
Wow. For
myself and my wife. So in 3 to 4 years, we will have paid off our home. So for individuals like us, even though I mean I look that old, and so that's another story. but for individuals who have paid off their homes, especially the elderly, is it possible to have a grandfather clause in there where whatever taxes that they're currently paying, that even though their homes are in an area that has now just blossomed and now just everything around them has just bloomed and just blossomed to something that is beyond belief, can their taxes kind of remain the same, or just have an additional 1% or 5% tax increase, and that's it?
So you know what? You almost just explained my bill that I introduced it and haven't been able to get passed.
Okay.
So we have for seniors, and it's based off of our over 65 deduction, where seniors' property taxes would not increase. There's still an increase because schools still need to be paid for and services still need to be paid.
Let me say this first. I'm not 65, but I've been in my home since my early 20s, which is the honest to goodness truth.
Which is great.
Yes.
Which is great. You were forward thinking.
Yes.
You were in your 20s. But the senior deduction, it caps their increase to 2% each year. So with the neighborhood enhancement district bill that I have been introducing, it would also cap that increase for people who are long-time homeowners, homestead homeowners. We make sure we're getting the people who have lived in their homes, not somebody that has a rental property or maybe a second home or something of that nature. If that has been your homestead property for 10 years, then it will cap that increase. That makes it easier for people to stay in their homes. So that has been a big push and issue that I have seen and heard, I will say in our district, I don't know that the 2%, our taxes are going up by 2%, like I will say in Center Township, where people are moving in. You have one house that's assessed at maybe $100,000, and somebody renovates the house next door, and they sell it for $250,000, $300,000.
Yes.
That person that's been in that home, the older home, for 10, 15, 20 years, their value is going to go up significantly.
Yes.
And it makes it difficult for those people. And oftentimes it's older people who just can't afford to stay in their homes, and they end up losing them. And so that is just a big concern. That's a big concern for me, and that's very troubling to me, that we have people who stayed in their communities. And I always say this, so people who are there, they were there when the neighborhoods were fine. It went through a period in which home ownership maybe went down, people moved out, the climate of that neighborhood changed in the negative direction, but people fought back, they stayed, and they worked to see improvements in their community. And now that those improvements have come, they can't afford to stay in those properties. And that is terrible. They fought for improvements in their communities. And all those things they fought for, they can't benefit from because they can't afford to stay in there.
Wow. And, well, I say this much to you. Thank you very much for introducing that particular bill, because that is something that's very important, because even though this last month, I just hit the young age of 56. The one thing I can say, being in my home, it'll be 27 years on the 22nd of February, and that's one of those things. Even though I believe we were a part of gentrification in this particular area during that time in the 90s, but being in Center Township and other locations downtown, for individuals 65 and older, having lived in their homes and been involved in communities, that's a tough pill to swallow. All of a sudden, they're being forced out of their homes, and where are they supposed to go?
And that's a great question. Where are they going to go? If they lose their home in tax sale, if someone buys their home, could buy their home, whatever, what we call an overbid. So say they have taxes and they owe $1,500 in taxes.
Right.
And they can't pay that. And somebody purchases the home for $15,000 or $20,000. So all of that overbid, that person does get back.
Right.
But that doesn't make up
happen
for the fact that I'm not in my home anymore.
Wow.
People will prefer to stay in their homes. And so I've seen people, lose their home, and, they get that equity back.
Right.
But it's not an ideal situation for individuals.
Yeah.
And so if we can find a way, or if we can pass, my bill, that will help people. Now, we do have a bill that is going through. It passed the Senate. I don't know if it's going to get a hearing in the House. It does something similar to my bill. The problem that I have with it is you can be a beneficiary having only lived in your house for 3 years. Well,
really?
That's not gentrification. That's not helping the long-time homeowners. That's really just a deduction to help people who probably are not happy that their property values are going up based on the sales data versus older people or even, individuals your age who've been in their homes for 10, 15, 20 years, who are really seeing a resurgence and not able to pay their property taxes. Right. And there's no limit on what that assessed value is, so you could have a community where the houses are $500,000-$600,000, and that community, goes to their counselor and said, I don't think that I'm not happy that value in my community continues to go up.
Right.
And those individuals, the squeaky wheel.
That's right.
They get the benefit, whereas the lower income individuals who really don't have the access, don't know the system, they don't get that benefit.
Wow.
And they've been in their community for years. So, so something did move. Whether or not that legislation is going to pass, I don't know. But it does need a lot of work because, my goal is to help those long-time homeowners who are being affected by gentrification.
Right.
And that is not a black or white issue to me. That is a home ownership and a human issue for me.
Yes, and yes, that is a home ownership issue. And hopefully you receive bipartisan support on this. And I do want to follow up on that one later on as well as some of the others. But you also mentioned about 5G service. And I have been speaking to not just African Americans, but I've also spoken to some of my other brothers and sisters out there that don't look like me. And they have major concerns about all, as you indicated, the potential of having a pole going up in my neighborhood or somewhere around the community. And because of what they're saying, 5G can bring better service, better coverage, better this, better that. But in order for 5G to be successful, you have to have more coverage. And more coverage meaning you have to have another pole somewhere in your neighborhood. So how can we get around it? I mean, in some areas like ours, we don't have a lot of light poles. All of our electricity that we receive is all underground. So if we don't have a lot of electrical poles, then guess what? We're going to have them in our area. So, I mean, what's the answer here?
I think the answer is to let the locals and the people in those communities decide what they want in those communities, and the legislature not being the dictator of what happens. There is a process. I know, there's one company that has been the main culprit that is making everybody pull their hair out. And I think part of it also, a piece of it is the noticing. People not knowing, or people feeling like, the utility company is on their property, maybe not knowing that there's an easement and they actually have or allowed access to that particular strip of land. But, the noticing for people, are there, if there's already a pole, can this 5G cell go on an existing pole? So right. I think sometimes I think for companies, it's more of what is convenient for them versus being creative and trying to figure out a way that everybody can be happy. Yes. Maybe it costs the company a little bit more money, but it may save you in the headaches that you get by not being creative and trying to resolve the issue and the concerns that the people have. So, but that's an issue. It's, we do want, everybody wants quicker service and better service. And so in order to have that, 5G we're going to have to figure out what do we want to give and not give in order to have that service. So it's a concern.
Yes, and that's one of those things that I'm constantly talking to individuals that are constantly bringing up this issue, constantly bringing up points to the negative of 5G. They're seeing that yes, 5G is coming, it's on the way, but it's going to negatively affect me and especially my property value. And that's a conversation that is really going around. And so that's something that we will keep our eyes on. Now, there were two other items that you did mention, and one of them was in regards to the cigarette tax. And with that cigarette tax, you have a lot of churches that cigarette tax, and also the $33 billion that's the budget that you have. And I guess in regards to that, I want to just focus on churches that actually have food pantries. Is there a way for those churches with food pantries to be able to, I hate using the word tap into, but that's the only thing that I can think of at the moment. How can churches with food pantries tap into the funding to be able to adequately provide additional food for individuals that come to get food for their families from the church food pantries, or especially if you have members that are going to that church that's utilizing their food pantry?
So I think there is an organization called the Indiana Food Bank. I think that's the name of Indiana Food Bank. And so I would say for the churches to get in contact with that organization to try to see how they can tap into that resource. Because when, as a state, we don't give money to individual churches like that, but what we do is give the money to the Indiana Food Bank. I can't remember if it's coalition or not. We give money to them, and then they are kind of the organization that has the ability to distribute the money and the resources out, or purchase the food maybe in bulk and make sure that the different entities are able to get part of that.
Got it. Excellent. Because as a matter of fact, that's one of those things I'm going to recommend to my church, because we actually have a food pantry that's open a couple of days during the week, and we make sure that we do provide food from our food pantry for people that are in need. And
like Gleaner's Food Bank, I think they do a lot. They may give food to people and also maybe to different organizations as well.
Okay. Awesome. And that's good to know. And see, these are things that we need to be aware of, especially for all of the churches that are out there that are trying to help the members of their congregation. And whatever information that we can pass on that is beneficial for them, that's what we plan on doing. Now, the one thing with all of this information, this is great information that you were able to provide on here today. But my main question is, for bills that we want to show our support for, and bills that we're saying, you know what, that's not going to be a beneficial bill for us and for our community. What can we do, not only as African Americans, but for individuals that's watching this particular show? What can we do to show our support or protest a particular bill? What do you recommend that we do?
So I would recommend that people write, call, and email their elected official and let them know where they stand on these bills. And our website is iga.in.gov. If people go to that website, then we have email addresses that are listed there. We have telephone numbers that are listed there, and so people have access to getting in contact with us and letting us know what they feel about any type of legislation. And maybe it's not legislation. It could be, other issues that are happening, things that people have found out or know in their community that they want to make us aware of as well.
Good. And see, this is something that we need to know, how we can come to you, and so you understand what your constituents are interested in, what they want to have, or what they don't want to have. And this is the biggest benefit, more than anything else, for the African American community. Being respect. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
And I also have an e-blast list as well. And so if people go to the website and they go to my website, they can sign up for my e-blast list. The other thing is, and I almost forgot about this, they can follow on Twitter and Facebook. Many legislators have Twitter and Facebook accounts. Some have Instagram accounts as well. So you can follow them individually on there. You can also follow the Indiana House Democrats and House Republicans on Facebook and Twitter, and also the Senate Democrats and Republicans on Facebook and Twitter as well. So, we try to put as much information out there via social media also.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure that is known more than anything else. Now, one subject that we have not discussed is COVID-19. And my entire family was affected by COVID-19. And my entire family contracted COVID-19, and I'm very thankful to God that we made it through. However,
that's a blessing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And as you know, however, there are many Hoosiers that contracted the disease, contracted the virus, and they were not successful in terms of making it through. What can you say to us? One, that what we need to do to make sure that we protect ourselves, and two, about the vaccine that's coming on the scene. What do you recommend for us, even though, even prior to, during, and after, we made sure we had our masks, we had our Lysol, and we also had our hand sanitizers and our wipes to make sure we kept everything clean. But even in our own bubble, you make a mistake and someone comes in, you leave yourself vulnerable. But what can you recommend that we need to do for those out there who just think that this is just the flu?
There are, and that's disappointing. And even, I would say, for those individuals that think it is just the flu, even thinking it's just the flu, it is a very bad variant and deadly variant of the flu. And so you can't handle this deadlier version of COVID the same way you handle the flu, which we can get a flu shot for, and where a lot of people, survive. There are over 400,000 people that have died from this deadly disease. And we all need to be doing our part. And you know what? And it's not all about us. It's about our families. It's about people that we love. It's about people that we care about. And I know that people are probably tired and sick and tired of wearing the masks. Yes. People want to go back to normal. Yes. But we can't get back to normal to what will be our new normal, because I think we're going to have somewhat of a new normal.
Yeah.
Can't get back to our new normal until we deal with what the COVID right now. And that is going to require us to continue to be vigilant, to continue to wear the mask, continue to do the social distancing, stay home if you're sick. I mean, everything that we've talked about, just because, you don't feel bad doesn't mean that you don't have it and you're not giving it to someone else. And I appreciate the fact that people say, I have a right not to wear a mask, and that's true. People do have a right not to wear a mask, but I have a right to my life. Yes. And your right to not wearing a mask does not trump my right to stay alive and not getting COVID.
That's right.
So I think, that's kind of got lost in the mix of things, where people, even as a legislator here, we have some legislators that refuse to wear a mask. I was getting on the elevator, getting ready to get on the elevator, and one of the legislators didn't have on a mask, and I was like, you don't have on a mask, and I didn't get on the elevator. So we have to realize that this is something that is real and it's something that is deadly. Unfortunately, too many people don't think it's real until it affects them.
Yes.
And that is unfortunate. Something doesn't have to happen to me or one of my loved ones in order for me to know that something is real. So.
Well, I can
tell people to stay careful. This isn't going away.
No.
So we have to continue to be vigilant.
No time soon. As a matter of fact, I do know of an individual who contracted the virus, and after he made it through, he still would prefer not to wear a mask. And this was as of yesterday that I had a conversation with him, and just listening to him make that comment, it was totally unreal, because having contracted it, the one misnomer that a lot of people have, well, I'll never get it again. I have the antibodies, and so I won't contract the virus for another 3, 4, 6 months. Well, my sister-in-law actually had the virus. She contracted it a second time, and it was worse the second time around. And there are other individuals that have had the virus and contracted it the second time. And it was worse the second time. Fortunately, in those instances, the individuals that I know of, they were able to make it through. But it's for the mere fact that just because you've had it once doesn't mean that you won't contract the virus again.
Yeah.
So. And
we are still learning more and more about this virus as well. And for people who are saying it's just the flu, so you can get the flu more than once. So if it's just the flu, you can get the flu more than once. So you can get the virus more than once if it's the flu. So, I think it's just, I think people are not wanting to be inconvenienced.
Yeah.
But we are all in this together.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
And I guess I look at it, excuse me, from the standpoint of when they instituted the law of smoking in public. There was a huge outcry then. You couldn't smoke in a public restaurant. You couldn't smoke in public facilities. And then you couldn't smoke on an airplane, especially in an enclosed area. There was a huge outcry then, and it took a few years before that eventually caught on. But now, and I may be wrong, but heck, it almost took a generation for that to finally subside. And it's widely accepted today that, okay, I can't smoke. I can barely smoke in my own car, but at least I can still smoke in my home. But today that's been widely accepted, and it's and I can almost see the same thing occurring with wearing a mask with the new norms. And so yes, for that I can see. Well, I tell you what, as I mentioned, I would like for you, since you gave opening remarks, if there are any other comments or anything else that I may have failed to ask or we may have failed to cover, I'd like for you to take the time to mention anything that we should be concerned about.
Yes, there are some bills that we should be concerned about as an African American community. And we haven't talked about the policing stuff, so there's no way that I can get off without addressing some of those bills that are just a major concern for our community.
Yes.
So in these are things where people can take action on, and which need people to take action on.
Okay.
The first bill is Senate Bill 168. And Senate Bill 168, some people may have heard, or maybe they're hearing for the first time, where the state would pretty much take over the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. That is a very bad bill and a bad precedent to set. The bill was saying, well, to help create more trust with the community, we have these high homicide rates, and so we're wanting to change the composition, who can appoint the police chief. But the problem is, then we have the state dictating what is happening locally and not understanding our police department and not understanding the community. And to not, if we're going to build trust in the community, you don't build trust by the state taking over the police department. You build trust by the police department getting into the community and having relationship with those individuals and changing some of the behavior and practices of the police department so people can build trust with the police department. So that is a bad bill. And I would ask people to call their legislators. There is a petition on change.org that people can go to. It's called the Anti-Community Policing. So that's how they can look it up. And there are 3 bills on there. And so the first one is Senate Bill 168. The second bill that people need to be concerned about is Senate Bill 394. And so this past summer, after Black Lives Matter happened, and there was so much concern and outcry with what happened with George Floyd, the city of Indianapolis changed some of its boards so that citizens had more input on those boards. And so with Senate Bill 394, that would eliminate and undo a lot of the work that the city of Indianapolis did to try to build community trust. And so, the second bill that we need to be concerned about. And the third bill that we need to be concerned about is Senate Bill 311. And Senate Bill 311 is a bill that would allow a police officer to disregard the use of force continuum as it relates to dealing with people. So you don't have to do de-escalation, which is in another bill that we have passed dealing with law enforcement officers. It would prohibit a unit of government from adopting an ordinance or resolution or policy that prohibits or restricts an officer from using use of force. And so this bill just pretty much says that a police officer can almost just do what they want to do. And so in those instances, the African American community is going to be right back where we started from. And so those are really, really bad bills. Those bills are going to get a hearing on February 16th at 9 a.m. I think, and it's going to be in room 130 here at the State Capitol building. I would say, people, you may not feel comfortable coming down. You don't have to, but if you go on the IGA website, Indiana General Assembly website, you can submit your testimony to the committee, or you can come down and testify against the bills, or you can also sign up in opposition of the bills on the petition as well. So, we have a lot of bills that are not good bills at all. And I would say that individuals, if you follow the Indiana Black Legislative Caucus on Facebook and Twitter, and sign up for our e-blast, we do updates, and we also have advocacy training that happens every Friday at 11 o'clock, where we tell people updates and inform people what they might look forward to the coming week.
Wow, this is good information, because with those bills coming up, these are not good.
No, they're horrible bills. They're horrible. It's just, it's just sad. It's so sad, because as the world saw what happened to George Floyd, the African American community have been saying for years, we're being treated unfairly by bad police officers. Not all police officers are bad.
This is true.
Police officers that are just bad apples, they need to be off the police force. And the excessive use of force, and we can go name after name after name of a young African American person who's died at the hands of police officers, because the situation went from 0 to 100 in less than a millisecond, and that person ended up dying. George Floyd showed the world what we have been saying for a long time.
Yes.
And many people say, you know what, we see it, we finally get it. And a lot of people wanting to do something to resolve the issue. But we also have some people obviously saw nothing wrong with that behavior, because if they did, we wouldn't be dealing with these bills that I just described.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because we have to try to resolve the issue, and those bills, all they do is provide a cover for police officers, for bad police officers, to continue to do bad behavior.
And we must come against that and make sure that our voices are heard, because otherwise, as you said, it's the same old.
Yeah.
And this is something that cannot be. It just cannot continue, and that's the bottom line. So we need to make sure that on February 16th that our voices are heard more than anything else. Wow. That's you have me. Sorry, you have me kind of speechless now, and that's.
I didn't mean to have you speechless.
Yeah.
Maybe let's leave on a somewhat better note.
Yeah.
We did get House Bill 1006 passed, and House Bill is a law enforcement bill. And I will say this: it doesn't go as far as I will say the Black Caucus wanted to go.
Yes.
But it's certainly a step in the right direction. And what it will do is it defines chokehold as a deadly force. So it puts it in the category of deadly force. You know, the Black Caucus, we wanted to have a complete ban of the chokehold. It provides established. It says that police officers have to go through mandatory de-escalation training, which I think is really important. It would also think this bill, or maybe another bill, that would require that police departments share human resources records with police departments, because if one officer is fired from one police department, then they go to another police department, bad apples. So that police department has to submit those records of that police officer. And so, you know, those things that are in this bill is going to go a long way. And I think, and hopefully will go a long way in resolving some of the issues. The other piece is we're having officers wear body cameras. It will make it a criminal offense if an officer turns off their camera. So you can't just decide I'm gonna turn off my camera under this bill. So,
and that's a good thing.
Good stuff in this bill.
Yes, and you're right. That's a good thing. And so, and not only that, but it actually protects the officers against the truly bad criminal.
Yep, because it sure does.
Because what happens if they are justified in pulling their weapon or having to restrain someone in a very physical manner, and their body cam shows that this criminal, a true criminal, was trying to harm or do bodily damage or fatally wound this police officer, it shows that this officer is actually justified in not only bringing him to justice, but also protecting himself.
Yep. And other people.
And other people. And that's the one thing that we must get across, because it's a benefit to both sides, to both parties. And not just because if you say, oh, well, I just forgot to turn on my body cam. No, that doesn't hold water anymore. That just lets me know you wanted to inflict the type of damage that you wanted to inflict. I'm sorry. But that's what it says to me. Because you should want to be able to protect yourself in terms of saying, okay, this is what I had to do in order to maintain order and bring this individual to justice. That's just my opinion. But who am I, right? but
you are Michael Jefferson, my constituent.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I am. Well, Representative Pryor, I have to say thank you very much for being a part of Affairs of State. And as accustomed to all guests that I have on my show, I also have a sports show that is called Block Sports. And it discusses HBCU sports with and we talk about all HBCU teams from around the country. And one of the things that I always do, I allow my guests their last word. And so you have the floor for your last word.
I would just like to say thank you again for inviting me to be on your show. It was an honor meeting you. I look forward to other opportunities to come before you and your audience, and just want to tell people to, make sure that they get involved, get engaged, let their voices be known. Go to the website, sign up for eBlast, follow on Twitter, Facebook, and go to that change.org petition, and let those legislators know that we are ready for a change as it relates to law enforcement and how it is handled in our community.
Awesome. Well, Representative Pryor, again, thank you very much for being a part of Affairs of State. And yes, you have an open door to appear on here anytime you see fit. With your LA, just have her to get in contact with me, or since now you have my contact information, you can contact me direct, and I will make sure that my site, yourstreet.tv, is open to you and anyone that's a part of the IVLC. So at any point in time you see fit to say, okay, we need to come on, we need to blast this information out, you let me know, and you have an open door, and I have no problems, because you are speaking to the person that can make it happen.
Thank you. So, we appreciate that.
So Representative Pryor, thank you very much, and I pray that you continue to have a wonderful day and be successful. So thank you very much, and have a blessed day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.